Our theme this month, as you heard earlier, is Living the Science of Mind. And today's topic is the divine plan. Each year in January, we take this time to take a fresh look at the science of mind, what it is and what it means in our lives. Today is the first in a series of 4 talks on what religious science or science of mind is, where it came from, and how we bring it into our lives in each and every moment. In other words, we are revisiting the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind text. This has been my own pathway for many years, learning how my relationship with God plays out in the moments of my own life, experiencing the changes that take place when I allow myself to be open, receptive, and trusting to the existence of God within me, not just around me, but within me. In other words, we need not feel that we must compel this power to work. It's its nature to make its presence known in our lives, to guide and support us with goodness and love. As we learn that it is the mind of God, which is the creative mind of the universe, and that flows through us, we also understand that is why our own thought is creative. It's because of this divine pattern, not our individual will, that our thought is creative. As I said a few moments ago, the topic is the divine plan. When Dr. Holmes wrote the Science of Mind text, his first chapter was entitled The Thing Itself. Penned long before sci-fi movies or film spectacles like Star Trek, for example, or MTV videos, his definition of thing was not what would be classified today as spectacular, and I have that word in caps, spectacular. In fact, he said there was nothing supernatural about life, nothing mysterious. There is not even any predetermined outcome, even though there is a divine plan. That divine plan is one of freedom. Freedom is the birthright of every living person. The inherent nature of each one of us is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. This inner voice that speaks to us is speaking to us of a life wonderful in its scope, of a love beyond our fondest dreams, of a freedom that our soul craves. That divine plan includes our understanding and our commitment to the practical application of universal love. And that universal love is flowing through us, and that we can use that in practical applications using those natural spiritual laws. The divine plan is that we are given power over our own lives. We cannot alter the laws of nature or natural spiritual laws, but we can alter our relationship with them so that we are no longer bound to limitation, to lack, to poverty, to despair, to violence, or disappointment. Those are the kinds of words we put in the burning bowl and set fire to and let the ashes blow into eternity. Each of us is an individualized center of divine thought. Through us, the original thinker, God, Spirit, source of being, is finding a fresh starting place for its creative power. In sync with universal natural laws, your mind, my mind, the mind of each one of us, steps in to specialize or to make personal use of those laws. And central to the core of the science of mind is a process we call spiritual mind treatment. We talked about that earlier in our Standing in the Light, spiritual mind treatment. In today's world, it's often referred to as affirmative prayer or prayer treatment. But Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, was very clear in his choice of words when he created the term spiritual mind treatment. And for any of those who have ever listened to any of his tapes, that's exactly how he pronounces that, spiritual mind treatment, with the emphasis always on mind. He explained that effective spiritual mind treatment is propelled by a consciousness of love and realization that the creative spirit is always at work in our behalf. He discovered that the use of affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment, brings into actual manifestation the health and the happiness which are our normal and natural heritage. We activate this healing power as we come into a consciousness of the unity of all life and the spiritual nature of all being. Spiritual mind treatment is the conscious recognition that in spirit, health, that has always been present, and it's always been ours to activate. Abundance has always been ours. Happiness and peace have always been ours. And they are ours now, as we realize they are the very essence of our true being. So this is an exciting time of the year. We revisit these beliefs with a conscious intention that we open new avenues in our consciousness to express the truth, the wonder, the freedom of our being. Each week this month, we'll take a different aspect of the science of mind and discuss it. And each week, we'll talk more about the use of spiritual mind treatment as a part of our daily spiritual practices. Today, as I mentioned earlier, we are revisiting Chapter 1, The Thing Itself. And most exciting of all, we'll talk about the oneness we recognize with all humankind and with God. To say that we are a new thought philosophy or spiritual community really doesn't tell the whole story. We are an interfaith, spiritually united community. There is but one mind. We all use it. There is but one God. We're all part of it. The laws of nature are universal. We all use them. And in such degree as our individual thinking is in accord with universal spiritual laws, the same orderly progression of harmonious ideas will operate in our affairs that already operate in the universal mind of God. For whatever, whenever, and wherever the individual mind links itself up with universal harmony, it becomes a spontaneous proclamation of that harmony, now individualized. The person responsible for what is today called religious science or science of mind, as most of you know, is Dr. Ernest Holmes. Born in the late 19th century in New England, Ernest was raised in the Congregational church. He was inquisitive, he was questioning, he was expansive in that he wasn't afraid to try new things. As a child, that sometimes got him into being called on the carpet, you might say. He had new ideas, even in his early years, about things. And as he grew to adulthood, those who knew him described him as kind, warm, generous, spontaneous, gregarious, outgoing, happy, charismatic. What a guy. as he began to develop this philosophy of the science of mind in the early 1900s, he was quick to explain that this philosophy was not necessarily better, but it was a synthesis of all that he had studied. That it was an understandable and practical way to put ideas into practice in our lives. This is one of the reasons we do the lighting of candles each morning before our service, because it addresses a number of different major religious or philosophical programs that exist throughout the world, not just because we know they exist, but because we realize that our teaching is a synthesis of many of those ideas. Ernest was a student of the Bible, partly out of his interest in the stories in the Bible, and partly because when he was a child, it was one of only 3 books that his family owned. So you read one or the other of those 3 books if you were a reader. In his late teens, when he moved to Boston, he met friends and through them discovered the essays of Ralph Waldo Emerson. When he read Emerson's essay on self-reliance, he realized that contained within each one of us, there is a universal consciousness that we are one with that which created us. Holmes also read the works of Mary Baker Eddy, studied mental healing, and from that developed a new concept of prayer, that you can change your life by changing your thinking. Out of Holmes' study of Emerson, Mary Baker Eddy, Thomas Troward, a name familiar to those of you who are taking classes. Judge Troward was a British metaphysician, and Phineas Quimby, an American metaphysician. Holmes discovered that God was a good and active force in our lives. Previously, he had seen God as passive, or as an observer, or as a judge. He came to realize that the mind is what creates, that God comes through us and expresses as us. Dr. Holmes also studied the works of Jesus, and of Jesus he said this: he was the most glorious of souls who ever walked the earth. He was a tremendous example of the experience of oneness with God. He was a way shower of the truth. He was consciously cosmic. Holmes described the Christ consciousness as the universal idea of sonship, son, S-O-N, sonship, of which every person is a member. From Philippians chapter 2, verse 5, in the New Testament, Holmes reminds us to let this mind be in you, which was also in Jesus. Each one of us takes part of the Christ nature to the degree that God is revealed through us. And to that degree, we become the Christ, the universal presence. Dr. Holmes looked upon Jesus from this viewpoint and studied Jesus' life as a living example of the Christ consciousness. He saw Jesus as the man and Christ as the perfection in all people. He believed that as the human gives way to the divine in all people, they become the Christ. That we all have this potential. We all have this potential. And from the teachings of Jesus, Holmes realized that wholeness, love, health, harmony are the ultimate reality, the ultimate truth. He saw Jesus as a practitioner, one who spoke his beliefs as truth. So Ernest took all this study and learning that he had been doing for almost 30 years. And in 1926, he published the first Science of Mind book. He wove the ideas of spiritual leaders, students, and practitioners from throughout history into a synthesis of ideas. At that time, his composite philosophy was brand new, previously unheard of by most people in the Western Hemisphere. But as he began to speak these beliefs, people came by the thousands to hear him. He spoke his truth as the ultimate reality. People everywhere were attracted to that and affected by that. Nowadays, these ideas are considered almost mainstream as science, philosophy, and spirituality come closer and closer together. Thousands of churches have sprung up teaching New Thought, or metaphysics, as it is popularly called. In truth, we know that New Thought is actually ancient wisdom revisited. One of the people that Dr. Holmes knew and associated with was Albert Einstein. He and Dr. Einstein agreed that peace, world peace included, was not an illusion, but a very real possibility, a potentiality. Dr. Einstein said that peace is an evolutionary imperative. Science will aid religion in this evolution. We know that to be the case in today's world, as science increasingly proves and supports the basic concept of universal synthesis. You see, when we're free to be ourselves, we recognize, we realize, and we reveal our universal oneness with God and with each other. You've heard me say before, peace is an inside job. Love is an inside job. Happiness, health, prosperity, success, all inside jobs. We find them in the world when we find them in ourselves. So here we are, the start of a new year. And at the start of a new day, for every day is a fresh start. There is a divine pattern within each one of us, a divine plan, if you will, that makes all things new, each moment, each day, each year. It's already present in us. It comes with the package. We just have to allow it to express. So I want to invite you to declare for yourself that this is so. So please say after me, there is a divine nature within me. There is a divine nature within me. I give it permission to express through me. I give it permission to express through me. You see, when our ears hear our own voice, speaking these words, we are generating great power. When we speak our word, we come to believe it. And when we believe in something, it reveals itself by means of us. This is the mind that was in Jesus. This is the mind that is in each one of us. Beginning of a new year. This is a good time to start new things, to end old things. And many of you did that last week with the burning bowl procedure. And if you weren't here or you didn't participate in that, whatever, you can do that by yourself. Do it carefully in a place where you can control what is burning into oblivion. But do it. Put one thing you'd like to release on a piece of paper. And if you have more than one piece of paper, and last week some of you did, it's okay, but only one thing per piece of paper so that it gets to be released individually into the nothingness. And those ideas, those impressions, those things that no longer serve you are the things to let go of. What does serve you? What brings you joy and happiness and peace and comfort and prosperity and compassion? Welcome to bring those present into the present and to magnify them and utilize them and bless them. Just as each cell in our bodies is constantly replacing itself, that is, making itself new, so too can we do this in our thoughts, in our ideas, in our intentions and in our actions. Behold, I make all things new. And so can each of us as we come to believe in ourselves, to trust in the wisdom that created us. I love that phrase. To trust in the wisdom that created you. And to allow ourselves to accept that as we go into each new day, each new week, each new month, that every moment is a gift. Whatever way we may slip or fall short, that is not the truth of our being. Because in the next moment, we can start fresh. We can start anew. And we can know something greater. In the next moment, we can access the infinite aspect of living. So I invite you to trust in the wisdom that created you. Recognize that its only desire is to express its magnificence in and through you. This is the divine plan. Realize that you are made in its image and likeness. This is the divine plan. And realize that the Christ consciousness is this divine nature outpicturing by means of you. That is the divine plan. Except that you can reveal peace, harmony, and wholeness in your thoughts, in your words, and in your actions. You truly are free. Free to be yourself. You are the star player in this thing called life. You are the individualized expression of God. And so it is.